Okay, so for the bottom section, we need to know Rhino, the basics of Rhino. Those that have done BIS3 with me, they know pretty much what's cooking. They will probably have to refresh what was going on. And some Illustrator, and obviously InDesign. InDesign, we have that little tutorial that I placed on YouTube. And I'm gonna go to a very simple, fast introduction of Illustrator, although I'm hoping everybody kind of knows what's cooking with Illustrator, and then I'll jump to Rhino because I know some of you don't have knowledge of the software. Okay, so let's start with Illustrator.
I was just gonna chime in and say that we didn't really get a lot of coverage on Illustrator, so
okay,
I might have a lot of questions.
Okay, that's fine.
I tend to default to Photoshop and InDesign myself.
Okay, InDesign is great. Illustrator is probably better for particular drawings, vector-based drawings, but you'll see it has many similarities with InDesign, so you're gonna be able to catch up. Okay, so the interface is very similar to InDesign. It's Adobe after all, so they all share many commonalities. You're gonna say new file if you want to start a file, or even open if you have created before a particular file. We'll see both examples. You can either go to print or web. That's the same division. So if it's print, you're gonna have the classic or standard sizes, which you have the European or the rest of the world models, A3, A4s, but you have letter size and tabloid, which are the US standards. You can click there, you can select the particular orientation, but you can also just say, hey, I want to do this in inches and place my particular dimensions for the panel. So which is probably what makes more sense, given that this particular size is around from 0 to 10. So let's say 10 by approximately another 10, just to start. So I can actually say here 10 and 10, just why not? I mean, again, you can make it later on bigger. It could be 10 by 12 because it's higher, whatever it is. I'm gonna make it portrait. The rest you can keep it as standard. You can say create. Okay, so that's your board. We'll start bringing things from Rhino, but before I want to do the intro here, you can also view rulers and so on, so you can show them, so you can see here on the top and in the bottom dimension to really see that it's 0 to 10, 0 to 10, so you can kind of check that the dimensions are correctly. To zoom in and zoom out, there are many ways to do it. Some people do Control plus and minus, but I normally do shortcut Z, which is this tool, and then I click the left button of the mouse, or I press Alt, and notice how the gizmo changes to minus, and then you press the same button to go out. You can do that, or again, Alt or Control plus and minus. As in InDesign, this is the action tools. And then this is your properties tool. Okay, so actions to do stuff, and then most commonly in the properties, you change things that exist already, or the properties of things. So you can do things like lines. I don't know, you go to lines. The shortcuts are in parentheses when you stay on top of a button. You can press that letter once and you will go directly to that tool without having to go all the way here. For example, the most common tool is selection tool, V, as in victory. You don't have to go there. If I press V and that's it, it goes to that particular tool. I know text is T, so that will work to create a text similar to InDesign. Okay, that creates a box, also similar to InDesign, that you can move around, you can shrink, and you can scale in different ways, as if it was a little Word document inside. You can double click inside and change using the properties panel here. You know, the font size, font type, and so on. No? So far, it's, I imagine, quite simple. It's the same as InDesign. Shortcuts is the geometries for M. You can do rectangles or squares. You can do round rectangles and change the radius for these things for each of the sides. You can do it also in a square by clicking on the circle and creating a fillet, a round fillet around the edges, around the corners. You can obviously rotate the form, and I'm selecting with V, and you can just rotate this thing or scale it. Okay, and you could move it as if it was InDesign as well. Okay, you can do any kind of shape, polygon, stars, etc., etc. So there are many things. Shortcuts are, again, lines to create different lines. If you don't see anything, it's because we need to control these two settings, which are the same as in InDesign, the fill color and the stroke color. Okay, you can step on top of one another to control that or to change that. For example, if I double click on the fill color and I say I want the red, and I create a rectangle, the fill color will be red, logically. If I do polygon, that will be red as well. I can change the fill by double clicking on that and then changing to the color and then going back to geometry to create that geometry. Same goes to the stroke. I can double click on the stroke element, make it black, for example. Sometimes it doesn't do it by double clicking. You can also go to the color palette here, that you might have it in a different place, but anyway, you can find it there and check on the black or change it here. And notice how it's changing over there. Okay, and then there's also a way of saying I do not want fill. That's the red diagonal line. That's none. So when you are on top of the fill option, you can say none, and that will just basically keep it transparent. So right now, as it is, I will be creating shapes with only a border stroke. So it will be like a black line as a shape. Again, no surprises here because this is the same as InDesign, pretty much. I can also say no stroke and yes to fill. I double click it again. Okay, etc., etc. Okay, so those are shapes, controlling fill and stroke. Now, obviously, we can either change the settings and create something that fits the settings, but we can select things and change the settings after. Okay, so that can make sense. I can select this and select the stroke and say no stroke. So again, you can change after you have created forms. Same as InDesign, there are two types of selection. One is the selection tool, which is for general shapes, V. I can select the shape and scale it with it and stretch it, rotate it, and so on. But then there's the direct select tool, which is A shortcut. And that allows you to select a particular point of a shape and change only that point. Okay. I'm selecting the points. That allows me also to do a fillet only of one particular element, so of corner. I can select a bunch of points and do the fillet for those points only. So you could, basically be quite playful. You can press Shift to add to the selection. And, so that's pretty much how that works. I can change the tangents while I'm in direct tool. That's A again. and I can move the points. If I increase the tangents, I'm able to control the curves in any way. Pen tool, also in InDesign, shortcut P allows you to create a polyline by clicking on the mouse only once, shortly, without maintaining the button. Press Control to deselect, or I can actually do with the pen tool, select and press and keep pressed to create a tangent of the curve, and I can start doing particular curvilinear geometries. I can close it and fit the tangents there. So I create that curve and this polyline. I can move it with a V tool, V shortcut to move the entire thing, or with the A tools, direct tool to move particular point. Any of the irregular shapes I can also close and create a fill. I can double click and say I want a yellow color inside of this particular form. So it doesn't have to be a pure geometry to create a fill. You can create your own, weird shape that combines curve and polygon. No? So this is a curve I just did with the pen tool, and it's mixed of polygon lines and curves using the pen tool, because you can do both at the same time. Okay, I can change the feel of that. I can create a stroke for it. Okay, so that's pretty much how it is. Now, all of this is vector-based, so you could take this, basically save it, and take it to AutoCAD. You can also do this the inverse. An AutoCAD file can come here, and you can work with it afterwards. It's much easier to work. It works with layers. So if you click on this button, you will find the layers, and you can create as many layers by going to the paragraph and say new layer and say something like geometries. And then you can create another paragraph and say text. And to move one object from one layer to another one, you need to click on the little box here. This is the same in InDesign, and drag it to the layer you want to place it in. So you drag it up, for example, to text. You know it's there because you can turn it off and on. Okay, so you go and drag it to a particular geometry. Once it's in that layer, you can do things such as lock the layer so you cannot touch it. You can obviously hide it and hide it. And you can select it, obviously. You can select it by clicking on the circle. So select geometry or select text. So if you have many, many things that are difficult to select one by one, the best way to go about it is to have it in a layer and select it with a circle here. Okay. That makes sense. Stroke. So obviously we can change the stroke of things. It's not just a straight line stroke. You can go to this little button and change the stroke. If you don't see all of these options, you can hide options or show options. So you can see all of the different things. You can change the thickness. You can change.
But where I
Yes.
can find the stroke.
The what?
The stroke, because I don't have this tool.
Okay.
Or maybe icon. So
If we can't find something, it's under window. Okay, so window is the answer to I can't see that particular tool. So then you need to be a bit of intuitive. Like I need the thing that is called stroke. So we need to go and find this element, strokes, and then it will appear. Do you find it?
Yep.
So think of any other one, window, color, color, window, I don't know, align. There's all kinds of things, transparency, Properties. Properties is a good one because it has a lot of stuff. Is this one here? So whatever you select, you're going to be able to change things on the properties. Okay, whether it's a text or whether it's an image, a line, or so on. Okay. Notice how the stroke is here. You can change the thickness, but it doesn't have all of the options. So you have to go to stroke. If you want to, for example, do a dash line, click on dash line, and you can change the parameters here to smaller dashes and bigger gaps. I don't know. So you can create any kind of dash line that you want. Yes.
When I click on stroke, it doesn't give me as many options. It's literally just weight. And then I get to pick the weight. It doesn't have like all that you're looking at. What are you clicking that gives you all of that?
Click on this little paragraph on the top right of the stroke panel.
Okay, show options. Okay.
There you go. Okay, then you can cap. So you can create a dot line. You can do it with the strokes, just making it smaller, one, and then you can say, I don't know, 5 here, whatever, and that would be your dot line, no? Maybe it's 0.5, depending on the thickness. Let's say 6. Okay, so that would be a dot line using the exact same tool of the strokes. You can change the cap here. You can do the corners. Let me make it a little simple here. This little corners here of the polyline, you can just click here on the corner style and you can do it around if you want. The endings, it's also a parameter you can change round, so it creates the round endings. You can create same in InDesign, so many of these things are in InDesign also. You can do arrowheads, you can do on the front and in the back. You can change the scale of it. This is great to create annotations, for example. If you want to say this thing is that, I did this in the other video tutorial. You can use the pen tool, click, click, press shift to do ortho. This is the same as in AutoCAD. And then get out of there, select it, make a thickness that is appropriate to an annotation line. Change maybe the color to a gray, so it's not too aggressive. And then you need maybe a couple of ending details like an arrowhead here. And then you might want like a circle on the other side. And you can do a text and say, this is that. I don't know what happened there. There you go. This could be changed in the properties to on whatever other font and whatever other type of style. And maybe you want to make it smaller. Maybe you want to change the color of that text to gray to be consistent with the line. You can move it there. Okay, so that's that. So far it's very similar to InDesign. You can place things when you place an image. It's also gonna make it as a link. You can just embed it if you want. This means that you have to be careful with the links. You shouldn't ever lose those images that you're placing. But if you want to embed, there's an option here for embed. So that means that it's inside of the file. But that means that the file is a little heavier. Okay, so I would recommend keep it as a link, but that's up to you. You can crop the images, etc. Okay. I think there's an intro. I think it's good. Anybody has any questions, thoughts?
Yes. I don't have that bar on the side.
Which one?
Mine,
The
the
right or
right
the
side, yes.
none of this. So you can go to Window and say Arrange. No, sorry, Workplace and say Essential Classics. I think that might bring it back to you.
Workplace. Oh no, what you say? Hold on. I'm sorry, my screen is split in half. Workspace. And Essentials Classic. Okay.
So if you go to a lab, computer lab, where the computers are not yours, and you open Illustrator and it's a mess because who knows why, maybe the first thing you want to do is go to Workplace and say Essentials or Essentials Classic, I don't know, and it will reconfigure everything to fit a particular standard. Now, if it's your laptop, I recommend that you start maybe with Essentials, but then you start dragging in different other windows that you use more often. For example, I have a bunch of things I don't use, but paragraphs could be good. Some of these you can, by the way, move around. You can just drag them in as well. You can also expand them if you use them a lot, and they could be, there for you to use more often. I don't know. I normally like them to be small and then only come out, bring out whatever I need at the moment. As you can see in the top, I have properties. I think it's very important. Layers is very important. Links. It's more important links in InDesign, but I think it's important here as well. Strokes, colors, and sometimes I use transparency. Gradients could be good. And then the text stuff, it's also important, but I normally do these things in InDesign as well. So, did it work, Inari?
Yes, thank you. One more question.
Mhm.
Can you, so for example, I'm using the pen tool, and can I exit out of the tool, or do I have to select another tool in order for it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you're in the pen tool P and I'm doing stuff, let's say, and you want to finish that, well, you can click on another tool, but you can also press Control and click in anywhere in the screen, and it will
And
finish.
it'll stop it? Okay.
Yeah, it will stop whatever tool you're doing. So Control and press outside is almost like deselect or yeah, deselect.
I'm sorry, you said Control and what else?
And just click with the left button
Click.
outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that goes with, things that you're doing as you go, I guess. The pen tool is one of them. But if you have a text, you're doing stuff, how do you get out without creating another text? Well, you can click outside, I guess, but you can also press Control and outside. I think that works. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave Illustrator open because I want to stop this. I will call this something like